right. Hello, everyone. This is Rhythm and Roads. I'm your host, Joshua Jacob. We have a very special guest with us, award-winning director, producer, Tim SearFoss of Break Every Chain, which is also award-winning film. All right, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell me, how did you get into filmmaking? What was the story behind you going to school and all that?
Let's see. I didn't start out in filmmaking. I thought I was going to be an animator.
Oh,
I
is
was
that
in
right? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was always into art. I was artistic and so then, growing up, I don't know, I grew up in a Christian church, environment, and then they're always like, you got to make sure you do it for God. Everything you do has got to be for God, and then art was always kind of like oh, that's great, but what are you really going to do for a job, that I got that
Right.
a lot,
Oh, man,
so
right.
it was tough at first,
I
because I
bet.
mean, if I drew a comic book, it'd be like, oh, that's sinful, so it was like it isn't like it is
Uh,
today, today
oh,
I feel
right.
like it's much different. But so then I kind of when I got into high school, I didn't even touch a camera till
Whoa.
pretty late. Yeah, so I was in high school and I started doing photography. So
Okay.
that's kind of how I got started. I started doing photography, and I was winning awards, was doing really
Really?
good
For
at it.
photography? Wow.
Yeah, and then I thought, oh, I want to be a photojournalist. Like I like people, I like photographing people. I love like telling stories through the camera.
Right, right.
And I went to college, and while I'm at college, I'm talking to a friend, and I say, I'm conflicted because I was actually studying to be a missionary,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
I was doing like the Bible thing, Bible studies, and and I said to my friend, I said, I got this like missionary thing on this side, but I
Mhm.
really love photography.
Right, right.
And she said, well, what if God put that in you to do the photography thing?
Mhm,
What if
mhm.
that's from God? And that was like a light bulb moment. And I thought,
Dang.
wow, well, I never thought about that.
Right, right.
So I didn't end up finishing school because we ran out of money. And my
Okay.
sister ends up getting a video camera. Now I'm
Oh,
probably 19, 20 years old or something.
okay, okay.
And this is, of course, before the digital age, before you had them on your phone.
Right. Yeah.
So I got it, and she never got it back. Once I got
Oh,
my
right.
hands on that thing, I
You're
was
just
like, I'm hooked. And
yes,
so
yeah.
then I started doing like stuff for church, and then you start doing like somebody says, "Hey, will you do a video for me?" Yeah, and then it
Yeah.
grows and it
It
gets bigger. And
escalates. Right, right.
of course, for me, storytelling's always been what I've been passionate about. And
Awesome. That's cool. That's cool.
yeah, and so so telling, oh, but there is an interesting story. So um I didn't know, I was at a point in my life. I had actually watched Groundhog Day. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
I haven't, but I've seen the cover. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
okay, well, it's a
Yeah.
great movie, and
Okay.
I resonated with the theme. So the theme is like this guy's reliving the same day over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And but he starts out as a bad person, he's kind of a jerk and all of that. And because he's reliving his life over and over again, he eventually becomes, he starts to think about how he develop himself,
Oh,
how
wow. Okay.
he can do for to so he I think he even, I don't remember if he makes a list of the things he wants to do, but he decides to learn to play the piano. He decides to become a sculptor. Now these are all things which, if you know me, those are all things that I do and I am passionate about. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
the connection. So then, as soon as the movie was over, I said, "What do I want to do with my life?" And so I wrote down a list of all the things I wanted to do that
Wow.
interest me, all the things that interested me.
Uh-huh.
Art, photography, storytelling, music, and then it was like, well, I could be a teacher, and and then it was like, wait a minute, filmmaking literally covers all the things that I'm
Yep.
passionate about,
That's
that I
right.
love.
Yeah.
And so then I said, all right, well, if I'm gonna make this big decision, I gotta pray about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, well, I'm gonna pray and fast, and I'm gonna ask God, if this is really what you want me to do, you're gonna have to show me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm praying. I had a day job, which was like phone job, like talking on the phone kind of thing. And
Okay.
lunch, I would go do the fasting and praying, that kind of thing. And 2 or 3 days later, I get a phone call from somebody I don't know. They say, "Hey, Tim, I hear you're interested in movies. You want to help me make a movie?"
Oh my God. Are you
And it was like,
serious?
wow, the light couldn't have shone down any brighter.
Right? Like, oh, is
And
this my answer?
yeah, exactly.
Oh
So then
man.
it turns out it was like a little indie project. It had a
Okay.
it had a pretty good budget. for what it was.
Right, right.
And suddenly I'm over here, doing the storyboards,
Wow.
helping produce and helping co-direct, and that's where I got started. And then
Dang, that is
yeah,
amazing.
so then from that point on, it's been full pedal to the metal, to do the filmmaking thing.
Wow. That's thank you so much for sharing that story. That's incredible. Oh my God. From starting as a kid, right? And going to
Yeah.
teenager and all that, just the steps of all that. It's amazing. And I actually like the fact that you actually wrote everything down and you were actually saying, okay, I'm looking at what I like to do, and it's probably some I don't, but everything narrows down to filmmaking because everything does cover all that. The music, storytelling, even photography as a cinematographer, you
Yep.
go through the lens and just, yeah. So that's an awesome story. Oh my God. Now I'm curious, after you did this film with your friend that reached out to you, did
Yeah.
you still have any doubt, like, okay, is this really what I'm supposed to do? Or you were just
Oh,
helping them out and then just saying, okay, I'm still trying to figure things out? Or did you
that's
just
a
be
good
like,
question.
yeah,
So I hadn't been on set before.
okay,
I go out, and I think this is like maybe the first or second day of filming, I think, or something.
okay.
Anyway, and the two producers get into a shouting match, right?
Oh, no
And
way.
like, and it's bad, like they're,
Oh
and it's
man.
super stressful, and everybody's on edge. And I come home and my dad's like, how was it today? And I said, man, it was a horrible day,
Oh
horrible
man.
day, but I loved it.
Oh, there you
But I
go.
loved it. And
Right.
it was like, I don't care if they're fighting. I'm making a movie. We've got this giant set. We got cameras. We
Oh
got,
man.
and so that, I mean, it was like, and still to this day, it could be the most stressful thing,
Mhm.
but it is so, it's hard to explain how it's an addiction. It's like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
there and it's like
Right.
thrilling. And no matter, it could be the worst day, you could have the worst moments, but deep down, you're still like, this is awesome. We're
This
doing
is, yeah.
something
This
that's
is my
amazing, that I love
passion.
to do,
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So after that day, when you came home, you still had that fire lit within you. You're like, hey, I'm feeling this. I feel alive with this. I feel passionate about this. This could be it. And so from there, as you were, I guess what you had other opportunities that came about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always had other opportunities, but it was always, okay, this is my mission. So then from that
Hmm.
point on, it was how do I make a movie? How do I make a movie? Now I
Okay.
knew I wasn't dumb. I knew that you're not going to make a movie when you first start. Like, oh, I
Mm,
want to make a movie. You don't just start making a movie, right? You got to learn. There's a
mm,
lot of, and this is a complicated field. Like there is a
mm.
lot of
There's
moving parts.
right.
So I knew I had to work on the craft, to get there. But so what we did was, pretty early on, I started making short films.
Okay.
So we made Christian short films. And now this is before YouTube. So
Wow.
so
Before
we had
YouTube.
yeah, we had to
Oh
stream them ourselves. We had to like host them ourselves.
wow.
So we started making Christian films, and they were kind of the idea was that they were edgy.
Mm,
And so we made this one, and it was like the third one in, and we made this thing, and it went viral, and
really?
it crashed, I don't know, 7 servers. We had, this is back when forums were around. All the
Wow.
forums are blowing up. And we would also sell the movies on a site. I don't know if it's still around, but it's called Sermon Spice, and it was like a way for churches to have the movie, to be able to show content. So they buy content for their. So
Yeah.
I knew that something was different when I go to a church. I visit a church, and then my movie shows up. My short
Wow.
film shows up in the
Yeah.
church. As a, and I'm like, man, that is crazy. They don't know
That is
me.
really cool. That is
And
cool.
and at the time, it was their bestseller. It was one of their best
Whoa,
sellers.
really?
And so it really took off. And so but the short film route was kind of, the training ground, because you can make mistakes
Mm,
and it doesn't affect you as much. It's like, okay, all right, well, we made that one didn't work. Why didn't it work? Let's fix it. And it was
mhm,
really eye-opening for me, just to understand the audience, to understand how people work, and
mhm.
understand the craft. Oh, they didn't understand that thing I thought they would understand. So then
Right.
you start learning, as you're going along. I would highly recommend anybody who wants to do films, that I would say make a ton of short films, because that's the
Mm,
best way to learn. You can make the
mhm,
mistakes. Nobody's
mhm,
going to judge you for it because it's a short
mhm.
film,
Right, right.
and you can make them pretty quick, so that was a big learning ground for me. And then
Wow.
eventually I started making short films for companies,
Mhm.
and then that, now the budgets are getting bigger,
Right, right.
and then at some point, you finally get to pull the switch and transition to the narrative, which is always a God thing, because it's hard to get into that world, but
Right, right.
yeah.
Wow, interesting. So what was the name of this film that you did? The first one that you said that took off?
Oh, well, it was called it's called Triple X. It was called Triple X.
Triple X?
Yeah, because it was like anti-porn. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, so what happens is it starts out with this guy in his office, right? He's just in a cubicle, and he's browsing the web, and he gets a pop-up for porn, right?
Uh,
And when that pop-up comes up, you're like, okay, well, what's he gonna do? So then he
yeah.
sees the pop-up, and he like backs up, and he reaches over, and he grabs a golf club, and he just starts smashing his computer. Bam, bam,
Really?
bam, bam, right?
Oh man.
And then the computer falls over, and he like rips it apart,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then as he's like in the middle of this, his boss walks by, and he's got this mug, and he stops, and he sees him, and now
Yeah.
the guy stands up, and his boss like hands him a coffee mug, and he says, porn. He says, porn. And then they drink, and
That's
then
funny. Wow. That's a good one. I like that.
yeah, and then at the end, you see the verse that says, if your eye causes you to
Uh,
sin,
right. Plug, yeah, yeah. Plug it
cast
out.
it out,
Right,
whatever.
right.
And so as you can imagine, all the porn websites like were showing this. They were like, "Oh,
They
look
were
at this."
showing it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So it
Oh,
got on
wow.
those, and then it got on these the more edgy websites that are, hey, look at this content. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I said, we went viral, and it was crazy, because here we were like hitting our demographic, right?
Right? You
um
really
and
did.
and the conversations were crazy. I mean, just crazy conversations about it.
Oh, man.
So yeah, so then it was used a lot for, to talk about the subject, to
Right, right.
address the subject. So yeah.
That was, and you thought of that story, the just a little
Yeah,
short.
so what we did at the time, we had a team of a few people, just like friends, and it was like,
Okay.
all right, let's make something. So I was kind of the main guy. I was a director, writer, but other people, of course, contributed.
Oh,
I'm
all
very
right.
I like being collaborative. So
Oh, that's good. Nice.
yeah, so but it was yeah, it was just one. We need to talk about this subject. What do we do?
Right, right,
And then it, it went from there. I'm not even sure exactly, how we got there, because
right.
it was like a collaborative experience, but
That's
um,
really intriguing. That's like that's awesome. It just
yeah,
your first one
I
just
think
took
it's
off.
somewhere out there. I think I've seen it
Yeah.
on YouTube or something, but
Okay. Yeah, if you find it, send me the link. I'd like to check it
yeah.
out. Yeah. So let's fast forward to Break Every Chain. I mean, and then you know my story. I shared to you a few weeks ago how I was watching three other films about 15 minutes in, and I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, and I was on Amazon Prime, and I'm just like, and I came across your film, but I watched the trailer and I read it. And I was like, I read the bio on it, and I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. And then I watched the trailer. I was like, sure, I'll watch it. After maybe 30 minutes, I was already in, hooked. Great story, and even for a low budget film, a lot of action, realistic life moments in it, and it's also inspired by a true story, which is really fascinating. So how did you land this project? How did you get involved with Break Every Chain?
Yeah, so a producer had reached out to me. I had worked on a project where Dean Cain was in, and Dean
Oh,
Cain
okay,
had
cool.
recommended me. He said, "Hey, you need to get that guy for a movie." So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so the producer reached out to me, said, "Hey, how do you feel about making a movie for Dean Cain?"
Hmm.
I said, "Yeah, sure, I'm in." So they sent me the book, because it's originally, it's his autobiography, so it's a
Oh, it
real
is.
real
Okay.
story.
All right.
And so his name's Jonathan Hickory. So Jonathan Hickory's they sent me Jonathan Hickory's book, and I
Hmm.
checked it out, and I was immediately hooked,
Hmm.
because it was realistic.
Right, right,
It presented how to be a Christian in a way that is not like a fairy tale,
right,
and
right.
that was a big one for me. I appreciated how he was honest about his story,
Hmm.
about where he went with it,
Hmm.
and and because of that, and the themes, so the idea of like, why does bad things happen to good people?
Mm.
Where is God when they're suffering and all of that? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid of those questions. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
let's tackle them. Let's go
Mm.
into it. It's a legitimate question that
Right.
needs to be addressed. So when I got the project, I reached out to to Jonathan Hickory, and we hit it off, and I told him, man, I had this vision for this story, and we talked about it, and he was in,
Wow,
and
that's
then we
cool.
were up and
Very
running. It
cool.
was a very quick turnaround. I think when I got the project, it was probably 3 weeks later I'm shooting, which is
Really? 3 weeks
not
later?
normal. Yeah, which is not normal.
Dang, that's
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
And who came up with hiring Dean Cain to be one of the actors in it?
So
Who thought of that?
the producer works with Dean Cain a lot.
Oh, okay.
JC, so Jason Campbell, he works with him a lot. So he had him, and then I was searching for the lead actor, and that was the hardest one. I need to get the right person for this job.
Mm,
And
right.
we spent so much time looking for the right person, and it finally came down to the wire where I had to pull out that red phone with the one button on it, press a
Yeah,
button,
that
you push,
was yeah.
hello, God, I need some help here.
Yeah, wow,
And
okay. The
last
red
minute,
button.
this guy comes through, Ignacio Matinha,
Yes,
amazing
he's an
actor.
incredible
He's
an actor in
going
that.
places. I hope to work with him again. And so yeah, once Ignacio Matinha came on board, it was a godsend. I knew that it was a god because we were, in the middle of shooting things, and it was just like, and now that I know more, I
Mm-hmm.
know how many landmines we were avoiding, that God was keeping us from.
Right. Okay.
So it was, and so yeah, once we had Ignacio Matinho on board, he really understood the character, and really understood Jonathan Hickory, spoke a lot to Jonathan Hickory. And of course, Jonathan Hickory was
Nice.
on set.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. Okay.
yeah, throughout the whole filming. So,
Really? Wow.
so he could provide that, authenticity. Oh, well, this
Mm-hmm.
is what a cop would do. This is what a cop would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually, when we showed up to shoot, we were there maybe a few days earlier, and the police department said, anything you want, you can have.
Really? Wow, just like
Yeah.
that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we actually ended up, we walk in, and they take us to the police locker, and they open it up, and it's like, all right, which police outfit do you want?
Wow, that is very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so we had a lot of, so we got to use all real cars, real
Right.
uniforms,
Uh-huh.
real motorcycle. Everything is,
Everything. Yeah.
is real. And then of course, we had actual, consultant, which would be Jonathan Hickory, making sure everything was done by the book. So
Right.
that's what
Right.
gave it that extra level of, authenticity. But I was passionate about the subject because it is a little bit raw of a story,
Right. Right.
and I didn't know how audiences were going to respond to it. It's just,
Oh yeah.
I had to go with what I thought, because it does cover alcoholism.
Right.
So
It
what
does.
happens?
It does.
So what it is it's a story about a police officer who sees a lot of death, and
Mm-hmm.
he starts to self-medicate. He starts
Mm-hmm.
taking alcohol. It ends
Mm-hmm.
up and it ends up destroying his life. He
Mm-hmm.
all of his life comes apart, and
Right.
then finally, when he's basically suicidal, he reaches out to God, and then his life begins to turn around, and he starts to
Mm-hmm.
pick up the pieces and put
Mm-hmm.
them back together, and get his life back. But what
Mm-hmm.
I liked about it is that it wasn't easy. It was hard,
That's
and
right.
life
Yeah.
doesn't get better when he becomes a Christian. It actually gets
Right.
worse,
Right. Right.
because that's more realistic. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great story about a relationship between, a husband and a wife, someone who's
Mm-hmm.
not a Christian, and then the
Mm-hmm.
wife who is a Christian,
Right.
praying for your husband who, you wish could find God, and that
Right.
frustration, and
Right.
those very real emotions that we have. So that's, some of the themes that I just really resonated with. And of course, the idea of this, like, does God let bad things happen to good people,
Mm. Right.
which I felt was important to talk about.
Very important. Yeah. And that's why I really related to this film a lot, because I just, like you said, it was very realistic life experiences. And like I told you over the other Zoom chat we had, was you had bar scenes in there, you had alcohol, you had smoking. I think there's some smoking scenes. I mean, just different, and just that's what it should be shown in a Christian film, because that's real life. That's realistic. You're not gonna avoid all that just because it's a Christian film. Say, no, this is his story. This is the real life of it, and we're gonna show it. And that's what I like. That's what I
Exactly.
like a lot about Christian films that I've seen in the past that do that. And I'm like, thank you for doing that. Don't shun it away. Don't say, oh no, we don't want to offend anyone. No, that's life. I mean, hey, if he went through that phase in life, show it. So I'm
Yeah,
glad you did that. I'm really glad you
I
did
think from my point of view, one of the things that's been missing with the Christian storytelling is that we tend to get a little afraid of,
that.
seeing something that we don't agree with, something
Mm-hmm.
that goes against our morals or values.
Right.
But here's the thing, it's like a photograph. A photograph, if you have a photograph and the whole photograph is the darkest dark is only just slightly gray and the lightest light is white, you can barely see the photo. You can't really see
Mm-hmm.
the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the darker the dark is, the brighter the bright is.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to storytelling. So if you have somebody who goes through to complete darkness,
Mm-hmm.
then when he finds God, that light shines brighter because you
Mm-hmm.
see how much he's changed, how much is different. And
Right.
that's the
Right.
case here is, it's unfair to say, oh, we're not going to show, drinking, when
Mm-hmm.
it's the reality, when this is something that affects almost all first
Mm-hmm.
responders. It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge problem with first responders,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of people,
Right.
honestly.
Right.
And to shy away from it, people who would be watching it, who would be in that scenario,
Mm-hmm.
who can sympathize with them, they will
Pick
go,
up on
oh,
it.
that you're being fake, you're being disingenuous. And that was
Mm-hmm.
my thing. Now here's the thing, I've never drank. Okay. I've never gotten drunk. I don't know what that's like. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a lot for me. I had to do a lot of research. I had to go, interview people and like, okay, what is it like? And I think in some ways it maybe made it where I could talk about it better,
Okay.
um, because then I could really analyze and process, okay, what is really happening to them? Like they think this is happening, but what is really going on?
Right.
And so, and we even had somebody on set who was a former alcoholic, and
Oh, really?
yeah, and they were
Wow.
telling us, oh no, I would do this, I wouldn't do that, that kind of thing. So
That's
yeah,
impressive that you actually had
yeah.
someone that could show you, no, do this and that.
Of
Wow.
course, Jonathan Hickory though too, so
Oh, of course, yeah.
and he was telling us like some of the things in the film are what he actually did. So
Wow.
for instance, his wife didn't know he was an alcoholic, which is
Oh,
crazy. He
wow, that
he
is
hid it so
crazy.
well. And what it was he would have one can of beer, and then he would leave, and then pour the like it is in the do it in the movie.
Oh, I
He's
remember that.
pouring
Yeah,
liquor into his
the beer.
one beer. He
Yeah,
hides the liquor, and so as far as she's concerned, he's only drank one beer today.
yeah.
And but what she
I
doesn't
remember
know
that.
is he's been so and at the end of the film, somebody came up to me and they said, how did you know all the secrets,
No way,
and
really?
yeah, and they said, man, you got all the secrets. And I said, man, it's research and all of that. But
Hmm.
that was, to me, that was a very it was an awesome thing to hear that we got it right, because
Right.
people were saying, I know someone and that's exactly how they do it.
That's
And
wow.
that to me is important,
That
that
is
like
important.
being authentic,
Right.
to the story, because if you're gonna sugarcoat it, you're not helping anybody. You're
Nope.
not,
Nope.
you really aren't. And
You're not.
you're saying, I don't actually understand where you are and where you're
Hmm.
coming from. So I wanted to
Hmm.
make sure the audience understood, look, okay, it's a faith-based film. So if they can get over
Hmm.
that,
Hmm. Right.
look, I don't know what it's like to be a cop. I don't
Hmm.
know what it's like to see the trauma, but let's help you get there. Let's, as I got there, let me help you see what it's like, have you go
Hmm.
through the same emotions,
Right.
that these guys are going through. So
Wow.
it was a challenge, but it was also very eye-opening. I had no idea. I mean, just in the filming of it, we went to, for instance, we'd have first responders come up and we'd have these conversations. And sure enough, man, it was each one, it's almost textbook. It's almost textbook.
Really?
Each
Wow.
one has the same story. Oh, yeah,
That's
I know a
insane.
cop. And they had the same story as Jonathan without the Christ component, of
Oh,
course.
right. Right. Okay.
I mean, some were like that. And, like when we had the premiere one time, somebody came up to us and it was a woman who had lost her child to suicide, her
Oh,
teenage
wow.
child. And she came up and she was in tears and she saw the film and she said, when my son, she says, I'm an EMT. So when my son committed suicide, I just went into autopilot and I was just helping him. And then now that he's passed, and watching the film, I realize now I have a problem. I am that
Wow.
guy. I'm in the middle. I've been drinking way too much, and the light bulb didn't go off till she
Right.
saw the film. She's like, I need help. And Jonathan Hickory, fortunately, was there. He could talk to her, that kind of thing. But
Oh, that's good that he talked with her. Wow.
yeah. And then we had another one where a woman wrote to us who her husband was a first responder and he did commit suicide.
Oh, man.
And
That's
she had been
insane.
blaming God the entire time.
Wow.
And so she saw our film and she said, after watching our film, she said, I didn't realize that this whole time I had been blaming God for him committing suicide and I'd been blaming the wrong person, you know,
Wow.
and I should have been blaming Satan. I shouldn't have been blaming God.
Mm.
And she had been carrying this weight, this whole time. So those kinds of conversations are why I love doing this.
Right.
It's
That's deep.
I get to connect with people who
Right.
I've never met, and
Right.
that lady that was divinely inspired,
Oh,
that God was
very.
like, you need to
Yeah.
see this, movie.
Yeah.
And I just, to me, it's humbling
Yes.
and it's something that also I hope I can, keep doing
Yes.
because it's important. This kind of stuff is important.
Very important. Very important. That's awesome that she actually was touched, and that gave her, I guess, a burden off of her to stop blaming God.
Yes.
That's incredible. See, so this film really impacted so many people. People you probably don't even know that have seen
Oh,
it.
so many.
You know what I mean? That's
Yep.
amazing. Wow. And one of the one of the parts in the scenes that actually moved me a lot was that part with the scene in it with the wife and the husband, and she's crying and she says, "Don't you see what you're doing to me?" I don't know those exact words,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the way she's crying, I mean, the way I felt her. You know what I
Yes.
mean? That motion was like, whoa, the way she looked, the way she was crying, and then he was just standing there like, didn't know what to say, but I'm
Taking
taking
it.
the blame. I'm taking it.
Yep.
That scene right there was so powerful.
She's
Everything.
amazing. She
She
did a
was a
great
great
job.
actress. She did. Great actress. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Christian did such a great job. She, by the way, she's also Miss West Virginia.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Awesome.
yeah,
Congrats to her.
yeah,
Sweet.
yeah. So she did an amazing job. She brought it,
Hmm.
and funny enough, like when you make a movie, so this is a little behind the scenes. So
Hmm.
when you make a movie, it's not made in the order that you're watching it. So
Okay.
it's okay. Like sometimes it's filmed out of order a lot,
Oh, right. Yeah. I've
and
heard of that.
so and the reason why is, like, let's say you have a scene that takes place in the living room and then there's
Hmm.
another scene that takes place in the living room later. Well, why don't we just shoot those two scenes together now,
That's
and we
true.
get it.
Yeah.
So
Instead of,
so with
yeah,
so in
living
their
room.
case, Christian and Ignacio, um in the morning got married. We did the marriage scene where they got
Okay.
married.
Okay.
And then at lunch they had that scene where where
Oh,
we're gonna get a
really?
divorce, and all of
Oh,
that.
man.
So they went straight from marriage to
Dude,
divorce,
where's the same day, huh?
in the
Oh, that's
same day,
crazy.
which was crazy.
Wow, what
But
a crazy emotion from being all happy. Oh, we're getting married, to get that
yeah.
emotion for the film. All of a sudden, okay, 4 hour, 5 hours later, now we're gonna go to the emotions of divorce and oh my God.
Another kind of funny behind the scenes thing is, he is drinking alcohol through the thing, so we can't have our actor be drinking alcohol, right?
Oh,
So
right, right.
what is he drinking? He's drinking sweet tea, right?
Okay,
And
okay.
so now the only thing that you don't think about is, if he's drinking for a scene, there's multiple takes. Okay, let's do
Right,
it
right.
again. Let's do it
Mhm.
again. And then, but you forget that his stomach is getting full as he's
Oh,
drinking,
that right. That's true.
So one of the
Yeah.
things I didn't think about was like, we're gonna have to stop because he's like, dude, I can't drink anymore. I'm
Oh
gonna blow
my
up.
God.
So
That's
that was
funny.
that's
Wow.
a funny thing.
And he probably had some more than one bathroom breaks.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We'd have to time. Oh, he went to the bathroom. We can do another scene.
Yeah. Wow. And did he ever have to like say, "Hey, can we cut? Because I gotta go to the restroom," like to
Oh
a
yeah.
point?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't imagine drinking so much. All of a sudden, you're like, "I gotta. Hey, can we cut? I'm sorry, I gotta go to the restroom."
Now,
That is.
one of the funniest behind the scenes moments that we had was there's a scene in there where he has a tense moment, and it's and he takes a shovel and he just smashes up his garage, you know.
Oh, that one. I
And
remember that one.
yeah, so to get warmed up for that, he goes outside and he's just wailing into the grass, just trying to, he's getting to that emotional, space.
Yeah.
Now we're filming at someone's house that
Oh,
isn't a
okay.
neighborhood, and they
Okay.
have neighbors, and the neighbors happen to be having a cookout, and and they're looking over and they see Ignacio come out with a shovel. He's just
Oh my
smashing
God.
the grass, right? And then he goes in, and then out comes Christian, right?
Right.
And then they're like, "Hey, come here, come here!" And they call her over, and they said, is that your husband? And then she says, no, no, we're not married,
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Wow.
they go, you need to leave that man.
You need to leave that, man.
And
Now,
she's like, no, no, we're doing a movie. We're doing a
right.
movie. It's
Oh, okay,
okay.
okay.
He's
That's what I
like,
was gonna
sure
ask.
you are. Sure
Yeah,
you
I know,
are.
right? Like, yeah, that's what they all say. Yeah, no. That's funny. Well, and even neighbors are like, "Hey, what the heck? Like, wow,
Yeah.
they just moved here? Oh man."
Yeah,
That's funny.
exactly.
So, Tim, as we're coming close to the end of this podcast, thank you so much for sharing all the details on this incredible film and just the behind the scenes. Do you have another project in the works? What do you have going on?
Yes. I have finished it's a documentary, but
Oh,
it feels
okay.
like a movie. It feels like a movie. It has a lot of cinematic components to it. There's a lot of reenactments, and
Oh,
it's a
okay.
true story about a dad who lost his daughter to fentanyl.
Oh, wow.
So fentanyl is the leading cause of death for adults right now.
Okay.
It's fentanyl is in they're putting in a lot of drugs and pills, and people are just dying bad.
Wow.
So what we do in the film is we talk about why people use drugs, why they abuse substances,
Mm-hmm.
and we get to the heart of, hey, they're a person just like you or me, and they've had traumatic things in their life, and
Mm-hmm.
because of that they're trying to self-medicate. They're trying to
Wow. Okay.
they're trying to make that pain go away,
Right.
and the only way they know how to do that is with drugs, right? So
Mm.
it's a powerful documentary.
Wow.
It offers hope and inspiration, and it also educates us to why people do these things, and then how you can help a loved one who's in the middle of that.
Mm.
So it's doing really well. We've won over
Okay.
20 awards with it.
Really?
And yep, and
Oh,
so
wow.
it'll probably be coming out. I would guess it'd be coming out in the spring of next year.
Oh, next year? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it'll probably be in the spring of next year, would be my guess. But it's completed. It's done. It's called 1 Second at a Time.
It's called 1 Second at a
And
time?
yep, and the reason
Okay.
it's called that is because the girl, Christine, when she was in the middle of all this stuff, she would say, I'm not living one day at a time. I'm not living even 1 minute at a time. I'm living 1 second at a time.
Dang, that is
And it
crazy.
gives you paints you a picture of how hard it is,
Right.
to fight this thing.
Jeez.
So it does have faith components to it, because
Okay.
she finds God at one point, and then also Mike, the dad, he also ends up leaning heavy on God to help him,
Mm.
through to do this, to
Okay.
overcome grief, and to overcome all this. So it's a powerful film. I think people are going to really get a lot out of it,
Oh,
and like I said,
yeah.
it's been doing really well.
That's awesome. I'm so glad it's doing really well. And you said 20 awards has already won?
Yes, it's already won 20 awards.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. How many awards did you win for Break Every Chain?
It was a little over 20 also.
Over
Yeah.
20?
Yeah.
Awesome. Incredible. Congratulations on that. That is awesome. Any advice to future filmmakers, anyone wanting to get into film?
Sure. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think the biggest advice is to just do it.
just do
Okay.
it.
So like what you don't realize, I didn't realize this till you get later. Okay.
Mhm.
But what you don't realize is when you're doing it just with your friends, and you're okay, I'm just gonna do this, even if it's like your family, which is how I first started. Okay,
Right.
my sister, my her, cousin or whatever, and you get them all in there, and then all the challenges that you're gonna experience, they don't go away. They just
Mm.
scale. They scale differently. So, okay,
Mhm.
your friend doesn't want to do it because he's got to do his homework.
Mhm.
Okay, well, now when you're on the bigger level, I don't want to do it because I have another job I want to get to. And
Yeah,
you're
that's
still having
true.
the same conversations,
Right.
and I would say that there's nothing keeping anyone from making films today. It is
Mhm.
really cheap. It's so much better than it was when I was growing up. So I
Mhm.
would say if you want to be a filmmaker, just start doing it. There's no better way then just start doing it and make the
Nice.
mistakes. It's okay. You're gonna
Yes.
make mistakes. You're gonna
Yes.
get better.
Hmm.
Just analyze. Hey, what did I do wrong? What could I have done
Hmm.
differently? And just keep that mentality, and
Yep.
you continue to grow. I'm still growing. I still go, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that.
Mhm.
And it's a process, which of course is what I love about it. Is that
Yeah.
you're never
Stop
gonna
learning.
like accomplish it. It's like it's always there, and it's
Yeah.
an unending challenge, which is what I love. But
Yep.
yeah,
That's
I would
true.
say the biggest one is to, hey, just do it,
Just do
and
it.
you're always going to want a better camera. I can tell you that you always want a better camera,
Yep. That's
but
yeah.
do it with what you have, and then story. So
Mm.
make sure you understand how to tell a story, and work on that. That's more important than any other part of it. And so yeah, those are probably my biggest two tips, I would say.
Great tips. Awesome. And that's true. You just trial and error. Do the short film, whatever works, doesn't work, do it again, do another film. Yep, that's totally true. So thank you
I
so much
love
for
this.
sharing that.
I love this quote. I'm going to get it wrong, but
Okay.
it says something along the lines of like, "Be so good that you can't be ignored." Right.
Ah.
So the idea is like, oh, why don't I'm not there where I'm at. Well, just keep working at your craft. The better
That's
you get
true.
at it,
Very
the
true.
more people will take notice.
Yep.
And I would say that my career at the moment has been that. We started out with a short film that did really well, which was the next step was,
Hmm.
oh, let me get you a feature, and the next step and the next step. So it goes as you just keep doing. And that's what I love about the Bible. It teaches that. It says faithful over little, faithful over
That's
large,
true.
right?
That is very true. It does say
So
that.
it's like, all right,
Yes.
you're gonna do it with your friends, treat it like it's a real job.
Yep.
Okay, all I got is $50 for my budget, and go,
Right?
and
Just
just,
go. Right. Yep.
yeah, do what you can with what you have.
Yep. Hey, just like with the loaf and the fish, right? You
Yep,
multiplied it. So even with $50, there you go.
exactly
Just
right.
say, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about that. Just do it and I'll do the rest. God says, I'll do the rest.
Exactly.
Yep. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tim SearFoss, for coming on. I really appreciate your time and just sharing just the incredible story from your short film to Break Every Chain. And then the one that I'm sorry to ask again.
1 second at a time.
1 second at a time. That's right. And I look forward to seeing that one. I really do. So keep me posted on when that's released. But thank you again. And I just want to say that it's really interesting how God brought this together because, I mean, if I didn't go looking around on Amazon Prime, there wouldn't be this. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
met you. So just to have what this is right here with you, it's just a blessing. And I'm really appreciative of your time. And I really love the film. It's an incredible film. And thank you again for the poster. I mean, when I got it, I was like, I even posted on Instagram. I was like, look, guys, got my poster. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah. So thank you again for sending that to me. I really appreciate it. But that is it, guys. So I really appreciate you, sir, coming back on.
Yes.
And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, and I hope we can have you again in the new year with your new film when it's released, 1 second at a
Sounds good.
time. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.